Welcome back to the Pursuit of Accuracy. I'm Josh. Today we're going to be talking about Chinese optics in 2025. How viable are these? Is there any need to go above these and spend the big money on premium Japanese scopes? Or will this kind of scope, the Discovery Optics 6-36, work for 95% of people? Why it might not work for you? Why you may not need to spend more than this. So let's get into it. All right, before we get into the nitty gritty on Chinese scopes overall, we're first going to talk about the Discovery Optics 6-36. And the first thing we need to do is attempt to zero this thing at 50 yards. We are shooting the Desert Precision Gunworks Rim-X. This is his modified bolt design for the Rim-X. And we're shooting random lots. I have 4 different lots of Ely Match. It's in a foundation with the SkyPod double pull and obviously Discovery rings and the Discovery scope. So let's first, what I like to do is just kind of take a pop out here, and I have not shot this at all. So we're just gonna kind of aim here. Okay, we need to come up. We're about there. Impact was there-ish. All right, we're gonna go to the bar here. Let's split this. Okay, we were just a hair high. Clicks are pretty positive. Let me get in the scope now. We'll get this really fine-tuned. Well, as fine-tuned as we're gonna get it. So I'm gonna aim directly. Let me bring in some magnification here. Let me go right above this, and I'm gonna go about 2/10 high of that. Okay, so it could come up a click, and we're about 2/10 left. And I say, come in a little bit more here. We're pretty good. Let's aim right at that impact. Okay, we were a little low right. Let's go to paper now. And like I've said in the past, guys, we are shooting through the trigger cam. The image, you know, it is a representation, but it's not ever nearly as good as what my eyeball sees. So keep that in mind. You know, what I'm seeing looks better, although some cameras respond better than others. We're simply gonna find us a spot here. Let's see, I'm actually gonna shoot through the screen, make sure you guys see it. We're gonna go at that bottom left corner. Okay, it's pretty close. May not be worth moving that. Maybe a hair low, but I think we can live with that for sure. And it's obviously shooting a pretty good group. Got our aim right there. That one snuck up a little bit on us. Overall, I think that's gonna be good enough. You know, good enough for government work here. So let me first get into this. Toolless turrets. The turrets are really, really big. They are tactile. I'll give you guys like a sound bite of that. But toolless, so you just do this by hand, which I like toolless stuff. Does have a zero stop, although I take them off when I receive these optics, so that basically I can zero them however they need to be. The zero stop's not going to get in my way. So I'm going to call that good. Let me get you guys up close. So the turrets are not bad. I mean, this is a $600 scope. I mean, they are what you would expect them to be for $600. Like, there is a little bit of play in them. It's not crazy. It's totally usable. Nothing that's really going to hurt performance. The turrets are absolutely enormous, and that's one thing you're probably noticing right now, is that the whole scope itself is a large scope, and that's going to be kind of normal for these budget Chinese optics. You know, they're going to be overall a bigger design. Now, as far as weight's concerned, this weighs about the same as a you know, any kind of big PRS scope. So, you know, 40-something ounces, that's pretty typical. Let's back out here. Let's try and run the KYL. I'm just shooting this through the screen. Same thing that you guys are looking at. I think I may be out. Yep, let's load up a couple more. We had 5 left over from that lot. But, you know, first impressions of this, the glass is really good. It's definitely good enough for what 98% of people are gonna need. And that's gonna lead us into our second topic as we start talking about the real differences of Chinese and Japanese scopes. The budget and more expensive, kind of what you're getting and what you're not getting. Ooh. All right, let me peel in a little bit. I couldn't see that miss. I'm gonna assume it's a little left. We're gonna aim right edge here. Yeah, there we go. All right, let's take this out to 100 yards. All right, so that is our 100-yard target. Let's see just how remotely close we are. That's pretty good. We're about to switch ammo lots. So that's likely going to change, but this is a good time for you guys to see the image quality out there at 100 yards. Again, you know, to my eye, what I'm seeing is much better than what the trigger cam shows, but it is a representation. We do have an illumination. We have 6 levels of it. We'll go through all 6 here, and there's a stop in between, so that's a level 1. Already kind of daylight bright. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, 6 is totally usable. The only thing I don't like is that it's not the entire reticle. I don't know why I like that, but I just prefer the entire reticle to be illuminated, but you know, that's okay. For the money we're spending here, I'm gonna tell you, optically, this thing is really good. You would not look through this and think this is a budget $600 optic. It does really, really well for what it is. So let me get loaded back up here. All right, guys, quick break to thank our sponsors over at SABER Tactical. If you want to get a nice set of weights for your rifle, you don't want to spend a ton of money, you need to check out these SABER Tactical weights. I've been running them on the gas gun since basically I found out about them. And if you don't think it works, check out me shooting off a bag, off of a table at 1,025 yards. Hit. Yeah. Hit. Hit. All right, I'm quitting. That's 4 for 4 at 1,000 yards with a 223. So, and I understand not all of you are worried about that kind of thing. Some of you guys are bench shooters, and I get it. So you want to check out their rear rest. Now, if I wasn't shooting off a bag all the time and I was doing most of my work on a bench or even doing bench rest shooting, I would be using that pretty much all the time. They also have a new roller out for it. So check those guys out. We appreciate them sponsoring the channel, helping me bring content to you guys. Let's get back to the video. All right, we switched to a new lot of ammunition, move this around a little bit, try and get you guys a little closer to the optic here. So I want to talk about the scope a little bit, the Discovery. It's got a nice smooth parallax. The parallax adjustment's pretty good. The magnification is smooth but stiff. It probably will break in. That's pretty common for some of the budget optics to have kind of stiffer controls. Again, you know, the turrets, they are tactile. They'll work perfectly fine, but they do have, and I don't know if you can see that, I'll try and zoom in on it. They do have a little bit of play between clicks. They're not as firm as they could be, but for the money, you know, it's really hard to complain because I think the glass is surprisingly good for the price tag. And where we're seeing less money spent is physically. You can see how big everything is on this. Physically, it's very big because I assume that it's made out of cheaper material than, say, like a Japanese scope costing $2,000. Now, are there probably extreme ends where this doesn't compete glass-wise with the Japanese options? Yeah, probably, like, you know, getting closer to dark, you know, really, really bad conditions. What I typically see is that these scopes don't cut mirage like the expensive options, but for most people, I think, shooting, going to the range, going and just shooting steel, maybe doing a little bit of hunting, having fun with their friends, shooting at home. Those are, you know, things that 90% of people probably don't need. Now, me as a competitor, you, if you're a competitor, then we're willing to pay the premium, the extra money to get something that is that much better, that little incremental better, something that cuts mirage better. You know, the difference in glass clarity for someone who's shooting competition, what we require is going to be totally different than the average shooter at home, because what we need is something where we can see the bullet in flight out of a 22. We need to see those hits and misses at 300 yards with a 22. And sometimes you just get options like this that they just simply can't do that. All right, enough yapping. Let's see what we can see at 100 yards, or really see what you guys can see at 100 yards. I'm trying to shoot in the scope to block out some of the sunlight coming from behind me. It is wildly bright out here today. We're gonna aim just below this guy. It's pretty close. All right. Eye box is pretty good, plenty acceptable, and of course I have the, I'm shooting with the trigger cam on here, so that's going to impair some of my vision. It just makes the scope harder to use for me, and those targets are incredibly hard to see with that background through the trigger cam setup. But we're making it work. This is the 100-yard KYL. Ooh, couldn't see that through the trigger cam. You guys likely did on video. We'll go straight up. Nope. All right. There we go. Had a guess on the windage because the trigger cam is cutting down what I can see. Oh, I did see that one pretty considerably. There we go. All right. Let's go out to 150 yards. Let's see here if we can hold on this guy, see what we get. Okay, wind's pushing right to left considerably, but they are stacking in there pretty good. Yeah, we're getting a pretty consistent right to left push. So not bad at all. Let's back out on magnification here. What we're gonna do is attempt to catch some trace at 150 yards. Now, this is super important if you are one of the guys who is trying to shoot competitively. Seeing your bullet trace in the air is really, really important, because on a 22, it's slow enough that you can, and I have this backed out to where I probably won't see it, but you guys may. Let me come in just a little bit. So you're gonna wanna look on the upper part of the reticle as you're looking through here. You're gonna wanna look 2 or 3 mils up. That's where you're gonna see the bullet kind of dropping in from as I shoot at this target. Okay, I'm not sure that I saw it. Yeah, I'm seeing it. Just a little bit. Hopefully you guys are on camera. Actually, let me make sure that you guys are seeing it. Yeah, you can definitely see it. So it's 100% good enough glass, you know, to use and to have a really effective scope. Again, back to the principle of, you know, the underlying deal of the video of, you know, this versus the more premium options that I shoot in competition. When you're out at 300 and 400 yards, the glass clarity, the coatings aren't going to parallel that of a $2,000 scope. So especially when you're talking about precision rimfire, a very small bullet, it's making very little splash if you miss or if you hit. And those little differences in seeing that or not seeing that is worth points if you're competing at a very high level. But for 90% of people who aren't competing at a super high level, who just want a good optic, I think in 2025, you don't have to spend $2,000 anymore. Now those $2,000 plus options certainly have their place, certainly are useful for people that are competing at a high level, who simply can't afford to not have something 100% all the time, to have the best that they can to give them that advantage. If you're that guy out having fun, and I don't want to discourage you from buying those scopes because they are premium for a reason. You can't go wrong with that. You buy good glass, a Mark V, Tangent, Zico, Razor Gen 3, the Theos, the track scopes, they're worth what they charge. They are 100% worth what they charge, but they are a scope that a lot of people probably don't need. So I wouldn't discourage anybody from buying that. I'm in the camp, you know, buy as much glass as you can afford because you're never going to be disappointed in that investment. But if you don't got the money, if you're on a budget and you're trying to set up a rifle and that's preventing you, if you can't afford to buy that $1,800, $3,000 scope to go shoot and have fun, that's the holdup. Sure, buy something like this, the Arc and the DNT, this Discovery. I've been very impressed with these for the money. and you will be able to go out, shoot, have fun, build skills, and work yourself up to that if that's eventually where you get. So overall, you know, I have not had any issues with this so far. I don't foresee any issues. The glass quality, clarity, the overall scope, yeah, sure, I can nitpick it, think we're empty. You can nitpick the scope 100%. You know, these turrets, they got some play in them, but is it gonna stop you from going out, building skills, having fun? Absolutely not. It's gonna stop you from having a blast, shooting on your range, even going to PRS matches to learn skills, build up to that point? No. Would it hinder me on a national level event or a very high competitor? Yes, I think something going this cheap into the end of this spectrum would cost you points or could cost you points. If you're missing, you're likely not seeing your misses at 400 yards with this like you would with that Japanese premium optic. So it's kind of going to depend on where you're at as a shooter, and it's a great time to be honest with yourself. What are your goals? And I don't see a problem with guys buying these. Yeah, it is a Chinese scope. You have to know that the QA/QC is not going to be there like the Japanese scopes. Most, if not all, these companies have pretty much, you know, guaranteed warranties. So it's not a big deal. Just know that you may get one. Something may not be totally right with it. You may have to send it back, get a replacement. That's just going to be reality at getting a 6-36 with 35 mils of internal travel, with illumination, with all these things for $600. I mean, if you're looking at the glass here, and let me back out, the sun's probably gonna blast us. Let me get you guys down here. You're parallaxed right now 400, and actually let me get closer there. We're just gonna set the parallax. Field of view, you know, plenty good at 6 power. Reticle, still pretty usable. And even when you dial in here, we'll have to re-parallax in. We're parallaxed to 100 now. Let's get that hill. Everything works pretty good. You can see parallax is smooth. Again, I don't have huge complaints about this optic. So yeah, if you were looking, hopefully this helped you. If you were looking at making a decision between this and something else, or maybe you're, you know, looking at Chinese scopes, I can tell you from 10 years ago, you know, I would never buy a Chinese scope. We're talking when they were in Walmart in like plastic packaging. That's no longer what we're dealing with in 2025. The Chinese scopes have come a long way, and I totally get some of you who say you're not gonna buy the Chinese stuff. I get it. And it's not my job to be on the politics of whether or not you should. And I feel like it's my job to come here, give you guys a realistic video, a realistic user experience, and give you the information so you can make your own decision. Because at the end of the day, it's your money, it's your decision, and however that sits with you, it's totally good with me. So I appreciate you guys watching. Catch you on the next one.